Namaste viewers. I thank Professor K. Narahari, President of Mythic Society, Mr. V. Nagaraj, Secretary of Mythic Society, and Mr. Jai Simha for inviting me to share my knowledge about the Dholavira signboard with a learned audience. I thank Dr.T.S. Ravishankar, former Director of Epigraphy, Archaeological Survey of India, Mysore, for presiding over the meeting. I am deeply humbled to present this research topic on Dholavira signboard in memory of the great scholar Dr. M.H. Krishna. I would request the audience to allow me to sit and present my talk. Today's talk is focused on the earliest signboard, a display board from one of the Indus Valley sites called Dholavira. The board is popularly known as the Signboard of Dholavira. The wooden board has 10 symbols engraved, and these symbols are the same as the ones inscribed on the Indus or the Harappan seals. It is interesting to understand what it communicated because the Harappan symbols are yet to be deciphered. The place Dholavira is situated in the Kutch district of Gujarat in western India. It's a large, well-preserved archaeological site in the Indus Valley civilization. Dholavira site is estimated to have flourished approximately 4,500 years back. This ancient Indus site is now upgraded as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The rich artifacts excavated in the Dholavira site, the meticulous city planning with multi-layered civil constructions and a drainage system give a good picture of the advancement in civilization during the Indus Valley period. One of the most interesting and significant discoveries at Dholavira was the mysterious and the oldest signboard in the world found in the northern gateway of the city. This is slide 1. It's for the location of Dholavira and the gateway where the signboard was found. The slide 1 shows the location of various ancient Harappan or the Indus sites in the northwestern part of Bharat. Dholavira in Kutch district of Gujarat is marked red in color. The meticulous Dholavira city plan was divided into 3 parts, which were addressed as a citadel, the middle town, and the lower town. Each part had massive stone walls around. Entrance to each part was made through gateways. The signboard was located near the northern gateway of the citadel. Actually, in the site plan of Dholavira, in front of the citadel, there is a bailey, that is an empty space. And in the northern gate, there is the gateway on which the board was earlier fixed. In the picture, we can see the structure of northern gateway. Each sign on the board measures about 15 inches and 15 inches high, and the board was 9.8 feet long. It is speculated to be a signboard because the width of the board was matching with the width of the entrance of the northern gateway of Dholavira citadel. 10 symbols were seen on it that were inscribed and set with pieces of mineral gypsum. Gypsum is a widely distributed dehydrated mineral of calcium sulfate. It is hard white in color, crystalline in form. It has been used in Dholavira board to illuminate the symbols and writings on the board. The wooden board, which fell on earth, got decayed with time, but the gypsum symbols inscribed remained on earth intact within the frame mark. When the signboard was excavated by ASI in 1991, the gypsum crystals were embedded in the earth and covered with mud and stones. The size of symbols inscribed on the signboard is comparable to the large bricks that were used on the nearby walls. Each of the 10 signs is about 15 inches high, and the symbols were really big. could be viewed from a distance. The special feature here is that one circular symbol has appeared 4 times, which hints at its importance. Its large size and public nature make it a key piece of evidence representing a different type of communication. Another 4-sign inscription with large letters on sandstone was also found at this site. I could not get the picture of this, but it proves signboards were in vogue during Indus period. In today's talk, we explore what the 10 symbols of Dholavira signboard may communicate. Some of the symbols represent the objects that were used during Yagna rituals, and some were constructed structures of altars. Pictures of such objects provided as support pictures for clarification. The significance of 262 Indus symbols and 165 seals have been analyzed in my book Symbolography in Indus Seals from the Vedic perspective. The analysis of the symbol on the board for what they communicate is worked according to the symbol analysis of the dictionary part of the book. I present slide 2 now. It's for the agenda. Initially, I explore the probable intention behind erecting a signboard. Secondly, I go through how the objects used in a yagna are comparable to symbols. And thirdly, it's deciphering the 10 symbols of Dholavira signboard, its significance and analysis. Now, coming to the first point, the probable intention behind erecting a signboard. I present slide 3. It is the earliest signboard of the world, the Dholavira signboard. It is interesting to see that signboards were in vogue during Indus civilization, even though the script of language did not exist. An insight into the social life of that period, which is detailed in literary sources of Vedas, reveals that people performed yagnas to appease deities. The recurrent request was for rains, prosperity, and a happy and a stabilized life. People had faith in the deity Indra, who would cut the clouds with his weapon and bring copious rain. Indus civilization was an era of yagnas. Performance of yagna by people was the social order of the day for the maintenance of well-being of society. The governing society had also insisted that every yajamana of the house execute yagna meticulously. A non-performer was considered a beast. Yagnas thus became major activity of people for which recitation of Vedic chants and Vedic praise was mandatory. The proof of the mandatory rules of performing yagnas is in Yajurveda chapter 28.24. It says, O seeker after knowledge, perform havan and preserve the brilliant fire. Agni is splendidly graceful, venerable and highly glorious. He is the bestower of a beautiful life and bringer of wealth. But the threefold protection of Vedic speech, here Vedic speech means the hymns of Veda. By the threefold protection of Vedic speech, he enjoys longevity and also enjoys the essence of Vedic knowledge. So shouldst thou perform yagna. Yagna required elaborate preparations and many ingredients, making the wooden utensils from specific wood, earthen vessels or handmade pots, and fetching the special type of soil for altar construction was tough for the civilians, and hence these were arranged to be disposed for purchase in corporate departments through agents. Since performing yagna was the order of the day, people could understand the symbols and approach the related place to purchase the accessories required. The place where these were purchased was indicated through symbols in very bold font so that people could notice them and approach them. The study of the nature of symbols has been correlated by me to to be related to the objects of Yagna ritual. Yagnas were mainly of two types. The first was Shrauta, the big scale fire rituals performed in Yagnashala like the Soma Yagnas. It observed rigid rules and called for huge expenditure along with the participation of many priests. Secondly, Grihya, other domestic ritual. They were less rigid rituals performed by the Yajamana of the house. Both varieties are briefed in Vedas and the relevant sutras and the Brahmana text. The performance of Yagna involved the purchase of many ingredients. The sponsor had to provide many things. Some of the necessary objects are listed here. Number one is Samiti sticks, and firewood of specific trees were to be collected. The sacrificial posts called Yupa posts were to be chiseled from specific trees like Ashwatha, Audumvara, Vikantaka, and Palasha. Varieties of containers of different types of wood were to be made afresh before Yagna because the used ones were always discarded in fire. This purchase of wood required approval of a supervisor who was responsible for the maintenance of the forest and was called Vanaya Vanapan. Yajurveda chapter 30.19 indicates that the supervisor should be appointed to protect the forest from forest fire and other destruction or misuse of forest wealth. Vanaya Vanapan, meaning the forest officer should be appointed to safeguard the forest wealth also, because the use of different types of wood for fuel, wooden containers, and sacrificial posts were collected from forest. The construction of a big-scale fire altar like Senachiti, the bird-shaped altar, and the construction of sacred altars in Yagnashala called for acquisition of land. Permission had to be acquired from the governing bodies of village. Making bricks in large numbers and shapes for big-scale Soma Yagna involved long procedures and took a whole year. Third point is, similarly, many rituals like the full moon, new moon rituals were also complicated, involving many priests, procedures, and accessories. Fourth point is animals like goat, sheep, antelopes, etc. required for immolation were also safeguarded by the officer called Anukshatram. In addition to this, milk, curds, butter, and ghee that were essential had to be purchased for the yagna because not all people reared cows in their house. With this, within the fort, cattle were reared in sheds called gomati, and probably milk and its products like ghee, butter were available with them for the performance of a yagna ritual. Sixth point is the Zoma Sticks, which were imported from mountainous regions in bulk, were very expensive and equated to the cost of gold or an animal. The required number of Zoma sticks had to be purchased. The accessories required to crush Zoma and later filter it required many objects. These were available for purchase with the agents. All yagnas were kept in account by an accountant of the village affairs called Grama Ganaka, and all purchases had to be accounted for. The priests to conduct yagnas had to be arranged much in advance. Some aspects of how the civilians could fix the priest, procure the required objects from the supervising organizers are listed in chapter 30 of Yajurveda. Yajurveda provides details about the governing ways of the country, the rights and duties of the king, of the citizens, and mutual understanding between the two for the maintenance of law and order and how the country should run smoothly. It included the socio-religious activities also. Several departments from where the materials needed for performing the yagna could be procured were governed by the king for the benefit of citizens. Every village had a chief and an accountant, also known as Gramanya Ganaka, who maintained an account of the transactions involved. Ganaka, the chief accountant, had to engage Anuchara, the agents who worked for orders. The requirement of the ingredients or demands made by the performer and the priest were acquired from agents of cooperative houses. The list of ingredients, the scale of Yagna, and the span to which it went had to be noted by the village accountant. The Indus seals can be read as the standardized format for the types of Yagna that were performed, as many seals depict the pictures of deities, the altars, and ritual objects inscribed on the Indus seals in symbolic form. According to Yajurveda, the total number of Yagnas were over 400. Its variation further depended on the four social orders, the Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, a combination of which gave rise to multiple number of Yagnas. Performing Yagna was mandatory for all citizens. The ones who did not perform Yagna were degraded as beasts. This is elaborated both in Rig and Yajurveda. It was only after the Diksha, that is the preliminary religious rite before the consecration, that the sacrificer contacted the agent Anuchara for procuring the materials required to perform a Yagna. Now, understanding who worked as Anuchara or Shanichara. Anuchara is the term used for agents who worked for orders and whom the sacrificer, after his Diksha, engages to collect the materials for the sacrifice. Such agents were called Anucharas. Shanichara in Sanskrit means one who moves slowly. It included the crippled, the disabled ones, the slow-moving persons who were called Shanicharas. They were engaged to procure or transport materials required for the proceeds of Yagna from the above-mentioned departments. Yajurveda chapter 30 also mentions how different types of people like tall, short, fat, black or white-colored persons should be employed for suitable jobs. All arrangements and supply of ingredients were done through agents. These agents probably had to specify the jobs or objects that could be undertaken by them regularly, because death or post-death rituals were inauspicious. They were different from the auspicious fire installation on altars like the Soma Yagnas. The symbols inscribed on the seal and the signboard are similar. Since Indus seals are about Vedic civilization, the signboard has information related to the social order of Indus civilization. The Yagna activities. They are the Yagna activities. They are the archaeological proofs indicating about the ingredients and the other details involved in Yagna ritual. The signboard is the display of a place where the chief accountant, the Anuchara, could be contacted for the arrangements and the venue for the performance of the above-mentioned rituals. It is for this reason the symbols were in bold font of 15 inches in size, displayed on a wooden board to attract the attention of common people who could see them from a distance. It probably read an intention communicating, contact us for the rituals, through inscribing symbols, which was the mode of communication during that period. Many symbols, representations even on the seals, are miniature representation of the objects that are still in use during Yagna rituals. The explanation of symbols on the board is supplemented with a picture of seals where they have appeared. I present slide 4 now. A line drawing of the symbols inscribed on the board and numbered for easy understanding. The number of symbols on the signboard is 10. I begin naming the symbol reading from left to right with the first symbol number 1 and then proceed to the significance of it. Symbol number 1 is identified as the circular Garapatya fire. The second symbol with a rectangular top is identified as Pranita Patra, The third symbol is Dashapavitra. Fourth is a repeat of Garapatya. Fifth symbol is the Ahavaniya, square altar. The sixth is Chatushpata. Seventh symbol is a single stroke called Ekaha. The eighth and ninth are twin repeats of Garapatya. The symbol and the last 10th symbol is tongs called Parishasa. The symbols say a lot. Sorry. The symbols say a lot about the rituals that were in vogue during the Vedic and post-Vedic period. Now, analyzing the significance of each symbol number-wise. The first symbol is indicative of Garapatya fire altar. The circular symbol with 6 spokes is repeated 4 times on the board of symbols, and hence its importance in the civilization can be understood. The symbol is also repeated extensively in the Indus seals, and hence it is important to know the significance of this wheel symbol. An in-depth study of literary sources and about the fire altars of Yagna rituals reveal that the symbol is identified as one of the 3 sacred altars called Garapatya. Now, what is Garapatya? Garapatya is the circular fire altar, and fire was called householder's fire. While performing Yagna, all oblations that were offered to the gods was cooked on Garapatya fire and offered on Ahavaniya fire altar. In Vedic period, Agni was not just an element but revered in personified form as the deity and celestial priest who carried the offerings to the gods in heaven so that the aspired intentions were granted by gods. Thus, fire and fire altars, which were central to yagnas, were mandatory constructions while performing yagnas. Production of fire and installation of fire on the altars was to be done only through elaborate rituals, along with the recitation of Vedic hymns by priests. Protecting the fire in altars with ghee, fuel, performing a homa, and offering oblation in fire contributed to health, increased happiness, and added to the welfare of the society. Now I present slide 5. This is for the ground plan of fire altars in a Yagnashala. In slide 5, I present 2 pictures of Garapatya altars. The first picture is about the plan diagram of the Vedi of Yagnashala, around which 3 sacred fire altars in different designs are structured. Vedi is an elevated or excavated plot of ground, quadrangular and in hourglass shape. The circular altar Garapatya is always placed to the west of Vedi. This is marked blue in color for identification. Garapatya altar measures 1 square aratni, that is 4 feet in area. Ahavaniya is the square-shaped altar and placed to the east of Vedi. Dakshinagni is the bow-shaped altar, is constructed to the south of Vedi. Sacred fires thus installed are mandatory in all types of big-scale Shrauta Yagna varieties. Agni is installed first in Garapatya in a Yagnashala, and other altars, the Ahavaniya and Dakshinagni, are lighted from this. The second picture is the structure of the constructed altars around Vedi, where Homa is being performed in the current period also. Fire was supposed to be perpetually maintained by householders. Every Grihastha receives the domestic fire from his father and he transmits it to his descendants. The domestic fire was the dignity of the householder to maintain Grihapati fire belonging to the master of the house and maintained by the householder perpetually. In the Vedic period, creating or installing Agni in a fire altar was not a casual activity. Element Agni was perceived as a deity and in personified form. Installation of worship of Agni in the altar had to be through an elaborate ritual. The fire was maintained by fueling it twice a day, all through the year, by the priests called Agnihotris. I present slide 6 now. It is about the significance of how Garapatya is depicted in the seals and the signboard and why they are with 6 spokes. The 6 spokes indicate the 6 seasons of 6 seasons, and the circle around the spokes indicate that Garapatya needs to be maintained all through the 6 seasons of the year. Garapatya fire was perpetually maintained by fueling it with logs of wood and always used for warming or cooking the oblatory material called havis. According to Chatushpata Brahmana, the construction of Garapatya represents the terrestrial world, which is conceived as the womb. Hence, it is circular, since both earth and womb are circular. After preparing the area, like cleaning the area from weeds, stones and insects, for the altar in the Yagnashala, the circular space was strewn with saline soil, which is fertile with soluble salts. On this layer of saline soil, a layer of sand is scattered, for sand is viewed as the seed. Sand also does not burn away the amnion by the sun's heat. This area was then enclosed with circular boundary of stones. I present slide 7 now. The 6 divisions in Garapatya also has significance of Vastu Purusha. In picture 1, within the frame of Garapatya, 6 stones are laid, which are depicted even on the seals as 6 spokes of the Garapatya. The 6 stones symbolically represent Vastu Purusha, the god of construction of structure, lying on his back. Vastu Purusha is associated to the science of direction in the construction of a structure or a house. The 6 stones that look like spokes are symbolic illustration of the architectural culture of ancient India. The central line constituting the 2 spokes signifies the head, back and feet of Vastu Purusha in a line. 4 more spokes or stones indicate the 4 appendages or limbs, 2 shoulders on top and 2 at the bottom as the parts of Vastu Purusha. While laying the bricks, the priest follows the movement of sun. The circular boundary structure is raised around this. This is about the significance of Garapatya fire altar, which was the most important part of Yagnashala and depicted often on the board and in the interseals also. I proceed to slide 8 now. This is symbol number 2 of the board. It is Pranita Patra, also recognized as Chamasa, the wooden container with a handle. Pranita Patra is a rectangular or square-shaped and 4-cornered wooden vessel in which holy water was fetched and kept near Garapatya fire. This is indicated on the signboard symbolically next to the Garapatya. The holy water was used to mix the dough for purodasha. Purodasha is a cake made of grains. Usually, the grains cake is offered in Agni in sacrificial rituals. Pranita Patra is 8 inches in length and 4 inches in height, with a handle made of Negroda or Rahitaka wood. The last picture shows how the Pranita Patra looks like. The rectangular Patra with 2 depressions is called Sakshira Pranita Patra, which is seen on the signboard. One dish carries milk or payasa and the other carries the sacred water. It is used in Chaturmasya rituals. Chaturmasya is the full moon and new moon rituals, where an oblation of paisa cooked in milk is offered to Maruts. The second symbol of Pranita Patra in the board hints about the undertaking of various objects required for Chaturmasya rituals. The quadrangular shaped wooden vessels, also called chamasas, were to be made in different types of wood, in many varieties, and designed according to the yagna performed. The handles were made of different designs that were designed according to the status or ranking of priest. These were not reusable and were to be made afresh for every yagna, and hence procuring of it was displayed on a board. I present slide 9 now. This is the third symbol, that is Dashapavitra. Yeah. Dashapavitra is the fringed woolen filter with a handle held over a container called Drona Kalasha for purifying or filtering soma juice after crushing. Its central part, called navel or nabhi, is made of white wool of a living ram. Dasha is cloth. The central part of the filter is cut and rewoven with the wool of a living ram. The freshly crushed juice of soma was filtered in this as a purifying act. This symbol, Dashapavitra, could also be the sieve with strands of munja grass called Valasruva. It's a type of filter, and the central part was woven with hair of cow's tail. It was specially made to filter masara in the preparation of sura. The first two pictures show how the symbol is depicted in the board and how it looks in interseal. The third symbol, Dashapavitra, on the board indicates the undertaking of special objects required for Somayagna. Fourth symbol is a Garapatya symbol again. Garapatya is already discussed. Now it is depicted with the square-shaped Ahavaniya altar as the fourth and fifth symbol. I proceed to slide 10. The fifth symbol of the board is a square symbol. This symbol is seen in many Indus seals also. It is identified as Ahavaniya, the square fire altar, as it is drawn next to Garapatya on the board. Slide 10 has two pictures. The first picture is that of the Indus seal with many symbols inscribed. The square-shaped altar Ahavaniya is shown as the first symbol in the seal picture, which I have zoomed. The second picture is the construction of the Ahavaniya altar, in which Homa is performed in the current period. The construction of Ahavaniya fire altar is in 5 layers. This can be seen in the second picture of brick construction. Square-shaped Ahavaniya is the sacred fire altar constructed to the east of Vedi and one of the 3 principal sacrificial fires. Offering havis or oblation to deities in Yagna is always poured into Ahavaniya altar. The construction of this altar, though a complicated procedure, was mandatory in Yagnas. Many priests were called while installing fire on this altar. Hence, it is advertised on the board about it through symbols. Because without these altars, Yagna could not be performed. The square-shaped Ahavaniya symbol on the board is by the side of Garapatya. It communicates to contact agents if one has to know about the constructional aspects of altars for Yagna or the arrangement of many priests required for this Yagna, and also various ingredients that were required while constructing them. I proceed to slide 11. Slide 11, it is the 6th symbol of the board, looking like crossroads. It is called Chatushpata. The 6th symbol of Dholavira board lacks clarity but has been traced by impressions created as the line drawing by scholars. The analysis is based on the reconstructed line drawing, which is to be two intersecting lines, identified as Chatushpata. It is also depicted in many Harappan seals that can be seen here. Chatushpata is a place where four roads meet and represent an area of human settlement near rivers. Darsha Purnamasa rituals were related to full moon and the new moon rituals, where all four categories of priests participated. It called for elaborate preparations. The crossroad symbol on the board hints that the availability of accessories to perform Darshapurna rituals. The crossroad was believed to be one of the dwelling places of Rudra, and an oblation is offered to Rudra in Mahapitru Yagna and Trayambaka Homa. Samasta Homa was another ritual where a condensed offering of milk was offered at crossroads of the road by rishis. The symbol on the board indicates the availability of ingredients, accessories, and priests associated with the various rituals related to Chatushpata. I present slide 12 now. This is the seventh symbol of the board. It's a long stroke, indicates Idma. Indus seals are with different types of strokes in varying numbers as symbols. If one set of symbols is bold and short strokes, some are long ones. Each convey a definite and different information. The single long stroke on the signboard is identified to be the representation of either Idma or a one-day Soma ritual, Ekaha. Idma means wood used for kindling fire, offered along with Samideni verses and recited at the time of kindling sacred fire. It is made of palasha or khadira wood and varies in size according to the ritual. The symbol of a single stroke represents a single oblation of firewood offered to deity Prajapati, who is the creator of all beings. The second interpretation for the single stroke is that it may also be indicative of the one-day Soma Yagna called Ekaha. The 6 priests called Shadhotris are required to perform Ekaha Soma ritual. The symbol on the board communicates the availability of special type of wood as Idma or the ingredients and the priests required for the one-day Soma ritual Ekaha. Now I proceed to slide 13. Symbols 8 and 9 of the board indicates the ritual Punaradheya. It is represented as 2 circular symbols in a twin form. Punaradheya is a reinstallation of fire in the newly constructed Garapatya altar. When fire in the active Garapatya gets put off under certain contingencies such as illness, calamities or accident, death of the Yajamana, loss of wealth, loss of prosperity, or even non-maintenance, etc., the inactive Garapatya is abandoned and discontinued. Reinstallation of fire is performed in the same elaborate paradigm of Agnadheya, the initial rite of installing sacrificial fire in the altars. It is also a prayashchita, meaning seeking pardon when the original Garapatya or Ahavaniya fires are extinguished by accident or discontinued for some reason. The abandoned altar is called Prajahita. Picture of the Harappan seal also depicts 2 Garapatya altars communicate how Punaradheya was performed when Garapatya was not maintained before the commencement of Soma Yagna. The colored picture of performing a Yagna in the current period also depicts 2 circular Garapatya altars. This also confirms the reinstallation of new Garapatya altar before the commencement of a Yagna. Since the representation of 2 Garapatya, the wheel-shaped symbol, can be seen on the signboard in the sealed picture and the picture of Yagna in the current period, it confirms that the symbol is indicative of Punaradheya. The new Garapatya is built by the side of abandoned Prajahita altar, and the newer one shows ritual activity. I proceed to slide 14 now. The last and the 10th symbol is Parishasa or Shafa. 10th symbol on the board is, it's called Parishasa. It is a pair of tongs made of Udumbara wood for lifting the heated pot from fire. It's used in a fire ritual called Pravargya. The symbol of tongs is indicated in many seals also. Performing Pravargya fire ritual was mandatory and to be performed as a minor ritual before the commencement of big scale Soma Yagna. The representation of Parishasa as the last symbol on the board indicates the availability of the tool, or it may also be indicative of the availability of the accessories required to perform Pravargya ritual. Now coming to conclusion, slide 15. This approach proposes a new interpretation for the previously unsolved puzzle of the Dholavira signboard. The symbols used in the signboard are also seen in many Harappan or the Indus seals. Each symbol has distinct data about a yagna. The repetition of the circular symbol of the Garapatya altar appears to be the central theme because Agni or fire was of great importance in ancient times. The representation of two identical circular symbols together is also decoded. The square altar of Ahavaniya indicated is discussed. Interestingly, the semicircular or the bow-shaped altar called Dakshinagni, where oblations are made to dead Pitrus, is not indicated on the signboard. This may be a clue that accessories of Shraddha or death-related rituals were not part of this agent. The symbols have more relevance to the socio-religious aspects rather than having a linguistic resemblance to Brahmi or the Sanskrit script. The structure of symbols is a miniature replica of objects used in rituals. Since Indus seals have information about Vedic civilization, the signboard with the same symbols also has information related to the social order of Yagna activities of the Indus period. The signboard is the archaeological proof of the display of ingredients and other details involved in the performance of a Yagna ritual. Hence, the conclusion is the signboard is the display of a place where the accountant of the village affairs, Grama Ganaka, and the Anuchara could be contacted for procuring the accessories and the ingredients required for a Yagna, because the purchase of objects had to be accounted for. The symbolic depiction of altars on the board indicates that this place also made arrangements for priests who conducted the performance of many types of rituals. The signboard of Dholavira gives knowledge about the socio-religious aspects of the past Indus civilization in a symbolographic presentation. With this, I end my talk. Thanks, everybody.
Same symbols. What is the difference between that 8 and 9?
8th and 9th?
8 and 9.
She said it is both the same.
Symbol 8 and 9 is the number on the signboard.
Yes.
8 and 9 symbols, they are twin representation of Garapatya.
What is the difference between the two? 8 and 9. Why not give one symbol for that?
No, because whenever one Garapatya is inactive, the fire is extinguished. A new one has to be constructed and installed. And the abandoned one, that is where fire was not active, cannot be reused. And so a new one was to be constructed with the same rituals of Agnadeya fire ritual. That's how the first one is inactive. You can see in this picture also. That is inactive. So that was abandoned. And this is the newly constructed where the Havis is cooked, active. This is represented in seals also. This is on the seal. That means Punaradheya ritual is undertaken by these agents.
Thank you.
This, yeah, and that animal, it's a bull. It's a metaphoric representation of a priest. It's not unicorn. It's not a horse. It's a symbolic representation of a priest, because Rigveda has many references. Bull, you are the priest.
Bull
Many,
is
many.
taken into
It is very.
It is a sacred animal. Is it a sacred animal?
It's not a animal. It's a metaphoric representation, comparison of priest to a bull, because bull was the most important animal in Vedic period. Very powerful animal. So the Brahmin class, and especially the priests, were the most wanted and most powerful people. They advised the king also for rituals. Ekashringi, it is that Shringi is it's again a metaphoric comparison of Kanduyani. You know why it is Kanduyani? Kanduyani is the antelope which has twisted horn. That is always tied to the upper garment of the priest after Diksha, before performing the Yagna. He is not supposed to scratch his body because it gives sparsha sukha. So that is not allowed for him. He has to use the Kanduyani for many rituals. He cannot scratch himself. So for that reason, even now it is tied to the upper garment of a priest.
Is it not Ajina Yagnopavita?
Yagnopavita is
Ajina.
Ajina. Ajina Yagnopavita is the sacred thread.
Yeah, there the skin of the deer is also connected to that, no?
Oh, that is the Yagna.
Ajina Yagnopavita.
Yagnopavita, but Krishna Jina is called the skin of the deer, where on which the priest sits.
So that is a seat. Sitting is this thing. But
seat is asandi.
Even this Ajina Yagnopavita is depicted in the ancient sculptures. Even it is there in the British Museum as well.
Yeah.
And you were talking about something like skin object to the body or something like,
No. It is scratching only when there is eating, because they have to, after Diksha for 2 days, they have to observe very strict rules. They have to lie down on ground. They are not supposed to use a bed. They are not supposed to use, they have to be only on hot milk diet.
Okay.
That's why many seals have, last lecture I discussed the fish symbol, how it represents symbolically represents milk, and it's
wonderful. Anyway, I congratulate you for wonderful lecture, madam. Thank you so much. It's something new for us. And secondly, I have got 1 or 2 doubts. I would like to clear it. And you said Ahavaniya. Ahavaniya is the type of yajna, no?
No. It's altar.
Altar.
It's even in all temples when there is a homa being performed. Homakunda ಅಂತ ಇಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದೌದು.
That is Ahavaniya, where ghee and other things, oblations are poured into that.
Acha.
But the payasa or purodasha cake, whatever is cooked on Garapatya.
Okay, Ahavaniya is a parallel name for altar of the Yagna Kunda.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Square-shaped altar.
Well, fine. And also, you just pronounced the word Vastu Purusha. But as per my readings, we have not come across the word Vastu Purusha till the age of Purana. Before that, he was identified as Vastoshpati. So what is the difference between this, whether am I right or not?
Vastupati is...
Vastoshpati.
Vastoshpati is, if you split the word, it's Vastu plus Pati, the head of the construction, where Purusha needs to be.
So, no, my point is, Vastoho Patihi, Vastoshpatihi. So, the Vastoshpati was in use in the Vedic period, but during the period of Puranic age, the new word Vastu Purusha arrived, they says.
Okay.
So, in that connection, when we speak about this particular period, it is better to identify that person or the human body as Vastoshpati only, no?
Vastoshpati.
My doubt. Vastoshpati.
Because the texts relate them in this form as Vastu Purusha. This symbol, there is a Puranic story.
Yeah, but
actually.
You
it's a long story. So he has to be represented in every construction.
But the name was, he is there. He was there during the Vedic period, I agreed. But the name pronounced for this particular person or the shape was Vastoshpati instead of Vastu Purusha.
Okay.
Purusha was not there. Please consider that.
Why?
And you
Purusha
just
was there?
No. Vastu Purusha was not there.
Okay.
The word Vastu Purusha was not being used as per my reading, madam. That's all.
Okay.
And secondly,
I will go through this. Okay.
Pranita Patra, you said. So Pranita Patra is a kind of holding vessel, is it not?
Yeah.
A vessel,
With a hand.
something old.
A wooden square,
Okay.
wooden shaped.
When we perform the yagna, we say Pranita Ajya Patra. So then hold the.
Ajipatra. Yeah, Ajipatra is ghee, one
So-
which holds ghee.
Okay, Pranita is the word for a bowl. And when we use Ajya in that, it used to be called Ajya Patra.
Ajya Patra.
Pranita Ajya Patra.
Pranita Ajipatra.
Okay.
Sakshira Pranita Patra. Kshira means the paisa is. They are in many shapes actually, rectangular or square, with different types of handles. Some seals have this kind of handle also.
But you have not pronounced the word Suksruva. Suksruva.
Suksruva is not on the board, so I didn't.
Okay.
I have the.
Okay.
I bought the Sruk and Sruva for an actual demonstration.
Fine.
But since it is not represented here,
Sure.
I
Wonderful.
thought it is only Pranita Patra is represented.
You are limited to the signboard.
Signboard,
Sorry.
that's
Fine.
all.
Fine.
10
Thank you.
symbols.
Because there are different shapes also in Sruk and Sruva. That's why.
Yeah.
I
Different
just-
shapes are there in Sruk and Sruva.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, learned scholars who are assembled here in this endowment lecture. First of all, I should thank the president, Professor K. Narahari, this Mythic Society, and V. Nagaraj, Honor Secretary, Mythic Society, and Sri Jaisimha for giving me an opportunity to be amidst you. I deem it a great honor to be present here on two counts. We are having an endowment lecture for a towering personality in the realm of Indology, Dr. M.H. Krishna. So, and then Madam Srimati Rekha Rao is not new to me. I have several times interacted with her for giving this very unique, I should say. In the last many years, I should say, we have been listening to different topics. And this, speaking on Indus, or Indus script more specifically, has become a rare commodity, I should say. Perhaps Dr. Nagaraj Sharma knows well, who had very intimate and close connection with the Directorate Epigraphy, especially with Dr. Ramesh, Jairam Sharma, and many whom I have to remember. At least, past many years, in the beginning years and several years, we had one full session, half-day session on Indus script. Various scholars used to come with different aspects and interpretations. And now, even among the audience, I see very senior persons coming who are really interested. I personally feel young scholars should come. Normally, in the course of my talk or lectures to the students, I suggest many gray areas in the area of epigraphical studies, and perhaps this is one. See, accepting or not accepting is a different thing, and we have to keep trying and interpreting things. It's very, very essential. So, I should heartily congratulate Madam for coming with her interpretation. There are two things which, one is interpreting and deciphering. These are two aspects. I think today it's with the interpretation of the symbols, the 10 symbols, and giving phonetic value, and that is another aspect. This is one aspect. So there are two things. giving phonetic value to each sound and trying to decipher, and interpreting, giving symbol each significance. First of all, when they called me, I have not made any venture, especially with regard to the Harappan seals or its decipherment. So, I have not made any foray or research in this area, though I have attended many talks. But one way I stay connected with this today's talk, I did my doctoral study on history of Vedic rituals and practices as gleaned from inscriptions. So today's lecture, it reiterates the fact that tradition doesn't start from the written records, it goes to that past. So it's a very rich tradition which started perhaps from that time, it continued. And two major inscriptions which have to mention here as an epigraphist. One is Naganika Inscription, Nanaghat Inscription, which is nothing but completely an inscription devoted to the performance of various rituals. And there was one occasion, they were saying it is nothing but sheer eulogy, how one can perform so many Ashwamedha sacrifice. That's altogether a different aspect, I don't want to go. And another, though very, very late important inscription as an epigraphist, very recently our Jaisamha and Uday Kumar, Mr. Uday Kumar were there in Sonda. There, we have a sacrificial inscription where altars are mentioned like Ahavaniya, Dakshinagni and Garapatya are there. And they have digitized very recently along with the other couple of inscriptions. So we have a graphic representation, though it's a much lacquered. And Soma Yagna was performed, somebody were invited from Varanasi or the sacrifice. So today's talk, she has gone in very detail, interpreting each symbol and adding much significance. So this is again a very great effort, and I wish, especially young scholars, to take up in detailed study of such interpretations. So this amply proves that the tradition of Vedic ritual and practices was something, it is from their past. So with these few words, we are again, I don't want to elaborate on this, but I keep telling young students especially to take interest in this Harappan studies so that we can take ahead whatever may be the results, but efforts are required, and already under her guidance or somebody who are already doing something, young scholars should pick up a lesson from this. And with these few words, again I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity, though I could not share much of in detail or in depth about, I have not gone into that. She is referring to many literary sources and many things, and interpreting and connecting things. It's a very good effort, and I wish she should further continue with other seals and sealings found, and bring it in a book, in a corpus, in her own method, giving different dimension to the study of Harappan seals. With this, since the another program is going to take place shortly, so I conclude my talk with this, and again thank all the scholars for being patient and listening to me also. Thank you very much, sir.